All right, y'all. So I got a question for y'all. What is RAM? Not talking about the GOAT. Not talking about the pickup trucks. Not talking about what you do when you play football. No, we're talking about RAM for computers. And I happen to have some right here. A lot. So, again, what is RAM? So, RAM stands for Random Access Memory. And basically, what that is, it's the actual memory that your computer uses to do its calculations. So, a lot of times when people say memory, they're not necessarily talking about system memory, they're talking about storage. So, this is something kind of similar to what storage is, but is different. So basically, what RAM is, again, is random access memory. So at any point in time when your computer is doing whatever calculations it needs, this is something they can use to store data for a brief period of time. So when they say memory, there's not necessarily remembering whatever you've done. This is just remembering, for the most part, what it just did. It can create a response and, shoot something back at you. And, continue about this day. So, why do you need it, and do you need more or do you need less? So, you need it because if you don't have any RAM, there isn't a place for your laptop or desktop or whatever kind of device you're using, because it's not just in computers and stuff. This is in your phones, game systems, whatever. If you don't have any RAM, then the CPU, the main CPU on that device, can't actually do its processes. It will look for space to actually do and kind of calculate things, but since there's none there, it can't do it. So generally, for the most part, generally, it's better to have more RAM. So can you have too much RAM? Maybe. I don't know. You can buy too much. You can definitely buy too much and not be able to use all of it. So it might be a little overkill here. So what we have in front of you right now, and in front of myself, are some G.Skill Ripjaw DDR3 RAM in 4x2 construction, 1600 megahertz. So I just said a lot of numbers and letters and stuff, and it doesn't make sense. I don't really fucking know, but I'll try my best to explain it. So DDR3, what does that mean? So basically, DDR3 is kind of like a format for RAM. DDR4 is faster than DDR3, DDR2, blah, 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 blah. So the number in that after the DDR, for the most part, the higher it is, the faster it can be. Is it guaranteed that it will be faster? Probably, but good rule of thumb, DDR3 is slower than DDR4, DDR4 is slower than DDR5, DDR5 is slower than DDR6, blah, 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 blah. So, get whatever the fastest type of memory you can get for your computer or your motherboards and CPU more specifically, because that's what's going to dictate what kind of RAM you can use. So again, we have DDR3, and this is, as you can see, is compatible with Intel iCore or Intel Core i7, i5, and i3, and AMD AM3 Plus and APU platforms. So what this means is you can use it on some of the older i7, i5, and i3 Intel products, as well as some of the AMD AM3 Plus and APU platforms, as well as several other ones. So if you're trying to figure out what type of RAM you need, always check the specifications for your motherboard and your processor. So what was it? The next part of the soup of numbers that is this. So we see 1600 right here. So what's that 1600 is? That's 1600 megahertz. That's the frequency in which this stick and all these other sticks of RAM operate at. And generally, the higher the frequency, the quicker things will move. So if you want to think about it as another case of bigger number equals better, you can do that. So there's a couple ways to achieve a higher frequency for your RAM. You can buy some that goes faster. Sure, that's surely the easiest way to do that. You can also overclock it, and that's a whole long series of things, series of steps and processes that you have to do in order to get it to work right and have it reliable and safe. Do I know how to do that? Fuck no. I literally just started looking half the shit up today, so I do not know how to overclock yet, but we'll get to that point, and once we do, I'll bring y'all on. But yeah, for the most part, higher frequency does mean quicker speeds for the most part. Probably getting this wrong. Focus. There we go. So probably getting that wrong. So the next set of numbers right here. You see that 9924. 99924. That's basically it's not necessarily how it fires, but that's kind of how it does its own process. It's the interval. If you want to think of it as like, a firing order in an engine, yeah, you can. If you don't know what that is either, it doesn't matter. Because to be honest, I'm not really 100% sure exactly what the fuck it does either. But the number next to it is really important. So remember how I mentioned overclocking? So that 1.5 V, that's 1.5 volts. That's generally the voltage you kind of don't want to go too far past if you're overclocking this stuff. Now I've seen people go, or seen videos of people going like 1.6 and stuff like that, but generally I think for RAM, I'll correct myself if I'm wrong right here with the value. I think for the most part, most people don't try to go above 1.55 volts. So when you're overclocking, you'll incrementally increase the voltage with this after you increase the frequency, just so it can help with stability. So yeah, so now let's go into branding as far as what brands to look out for. Now, I'm not going to go too far deep into this just because, again, I haven't been fucking with computers for probably since Obama was in his first term, so it's been a long time. But this is a name I am familiar with, and that's something I've seen back then. So G.Skill makes some really good stuff. I've seen this brand in a lot of really, really nice and expensive builds. They perform well, or else they wouldn't have the notoriety that they do have. So G.Skill makes some good stuff. I think Corsair makes some good RAM. Samsung apparently. There's a couple other. I'll flash them across the screen when I do this. There's a lot of different manufacturers of RAM to suit whatever application you have. So do your research on who's using what and how well it works. But for the most part, as long as you don't buy something like directly off the lower pits of eBay, and I'm not talking about just generic brands, I'm talking about like some sketchy ass shit, you should be okay. So as long as your specifications are good, you should be okay for the most part. Now, another thing, you see all these this razors and stuff like this, or razor type looking stuff, and the little metal anodized stuff. Does that actually do something? On this one, probably fucking not. May do a little bit. What these are for the most part, and when you're looking up RAM, especially in DDR4, since that's the newest thing out now, you're going to see a lot of RAM with a lot of extra miscellaneous shit on it. And what that will most likely serve a function as, other than Hotboy Internet clout bait, is it will function as a heatsink. So, and I'll go more into cooling of a computer a little later on. But what the heatsink does is supposed to draw heat away from this thing. So, for the most part, when you have heat in anything electric, it decreases the efficiency just a little bit. So when this thing is doing a lot of hard calculations and doing a lot of processes and stuff, it will get hot. So when it gets hot, its efficiency goes down, and depending on how hot it gets, you can actually damage components. So you add these heat sinks on here, or the manufacturer adds on heat sinks. You can add on yourself, but I don't fucking know or care. With the heat sinks, this helps keep stuff cool, just so it can be more efficient when it's doing its tasks, the things it needs to be doing. So if you're wondering why you see some dudes that have the like what looks like a half a foot of fucking shit on top of their RAM chips, it's because they may not have a life, and that's how they get their kicks. However, some of it does have a point depending on what it is. So for the most part, it should function as a heat sink to get heat away from this. So I could go into a little more detail about why there's so many pins on this. I'm going to probably fucking not. I don't think there's too much more I can explain about RAM. One, I do have one more thing. So when you're buying RAM, if you're starting out with a fresh system, please buy all matching RAM. It'll make sense in a second. Or if you're upgrading your current setup, try to match your RAM as best as you can. Because even though you may buy some RAM that has the same specifications on this sticker, there is a possibility that it may have a small difference in this. And if you're tuning your computer, or if you're setting your computer up with a certain expectation of these things, and there's a little bit of difference, you're going to get a differentiation in performance. So if you have all the same type of RAM, the exact same type from the same manufacturer, purchased around the same point in time, the similar manufacture date, then you can help guarantee more consistent performance. So whether it's going to be consistently good or consistently bad, it'll be consistent. So the most aggravating thing you can get is with a computer is irregularities and inconsistencies, because it may work perfectly one day, it may shut the bed the other day, but if you can be as consistent as possible with the stuff that you're buying, especially the RAM, that'll help minimize the things that could make this stuff go fucking sideways. So on that, I will end the video. I'll try to add some links to some places to get RAM or other computer components. And then specifically, I'll link the whatever RAM I decide to get with this build. Like I said, I'll go into reasoning as to why I purchased some of that RAM, or why I'll be purchasing some of that RAM when I purchase it. But for the most part, you now have a understanding of what RAM is. So you're already got one box checked off for the set of like 8 or 9 components that you need for a computer. So feel good about yourself. Don't make fun of my tiny ass thumb, tiny ass hands. But I'm a big ass nigga, so don't make fun of me. But yeah, so now you got some information that you can take back with you when you're trying to make your decision about what stuff you need to buy before you just buy a pre-built. Because to be honest, that sounds kind of nice right now. So yeah, happy building, y'all. Wear a fucking mask. Don't buy super sketchy shit from like the depths of Alibaba. And yeah, man. Happy building. Beep.
Nowadays, these niggas ain't thankful. And nowadays, these bitches ain't faithful.